Howdy, y'all. Y'all listening to the Brutally Delicious podcast with Bruce and Riina.
We're talking to Joanna Angel, who is an icon in the alt porn movement and has now released a book that allows you to sort of choose your own sexual fantasy as the story progresses, which is absolutely freaking amazing and cool. So congratulations on that. Could you maybe tell us,
Thank you.
Could you maybe tell us a little bit more about that project?
So, Club 42 is the name of my book. This is my second novel. It is fiction. So yeah, it is a choose-your-own adventure erotic fiction. And this book happens to be about a girl that works at a strip club. And it's like her first day. It opens up when she first starts stripping. So you kind of follow her into the world of exotic dancing. The book takes place in New York. So like the city of New York, it's a very fast-paced, fast-moving book. And yeah, every different path and adventure of the book focuses on a different character in the strip club, all like through the eyes of the same protagonist, so she gets into different sexual experiences and different things happen to her in different paths. And there's even some dead ends where she gets fired and it's a game over.
So for those not familiar or who haven't caught up with you, the book definitely, as you're reading it along, you get to a spot where it'll say, continue on with this or move to page, whatever, 199.
Yeah. Like, if you want to see what happens if she does this, right. Go to this page. If you want to see what happens if she does this, go to this page. So it's very complicated to write.
That was one of my questions was how difficult was that to put together?
Oh, it's
and
very
keep
difficult.
track. I mean, imagine the spreadsheets and stuff.
Yeah, you have to make like a whole like a crime map before you write the book.
Yeah. That is so cool. Because I remember like when I was a kid, we had those children's books, where you could influence the story and where it goes and so on. So I think it's freaking genius to bring it into this context. So how did you get that idea?
Well, I got to give credit to my publishing company because it was kind of their idea or their suggestion, for something unique and fun. I guess it was a market they wanted to tap into, and I accepted the challenge. I was a little bit confused at first. I was like, really? Are you sure? You sure this is a good idea? And yeah, so I got to give them the credit for it. But I attacked it. And I think, from my first book to my second book, they're both, choose your own adventure. Because the first one did pretty well, so they wanted me to do another one. This one's got so many more adventures, so many more paths. I definitely played with the format a lot more in this one than I did with the first one. So I think I understand it better now.
How long does it take to write something like this or put something like this together? Because you're busy as well doing a million other things, right?
I am. So it's hard, man. I mean, I think they gave me a year to do it, but I did it in about 4 or 5 months. But it's a 4 or 5 months like where I really crunched. Like I definitely, for a good 4 months, I probably sat at my computer and wrote for a good 12 hours a day. Really? Like 3 or 4 days a week, at least, as, whatever days I could. So I would kind of schedule it. All right, it was difficult. It's, and I'd be like writing and then like, I'd take a break to go work on like pre-production for a movie or something. And then I'd go back to writing. I mean, I guess the good thing about writing is you could kind of squeeze in time to do it anywhere. I'd be like sitting at the DMV and have like a document on my phone. And I'd be like, I'm going to write a paragraph now. But a good 4 or 5 months is like solid. Like I'm pretty much, my brain is focused on it all the time, even if I'm doing something else. And I am fortunate. Yeah. I try to start it a year early when I first get assigned, but who does that,
Right.
Yeah.
No one actually does that. You're right.
No one does.
So how much of yourself did you like infuse into the protagonist?
There's a lot of myself. I did dedicate the book to my sister. I think the main character is like a combination of me and my sister. But definitely a lot of the memories that I had when I was in my early 20s and I first started stripping back then, in my first night, and just like all the experiences of when you're brand new to this, the sex industry. A lot of those feelings I put into this character. I just kind of changed. I didn't want her to be, it is fiction. I didn't want her to be exactly me. So there's definitely a lot of things about this character that's nothing like me at all. But then there's a lot of like emotions and feelings and experiences that, are based off of things that I went through.
Well, that's what they say, though, isn't it? Write what you know.
Yeah, you got to write what you know, and
it makes sense.
Yeah.
So, do you see like your entire career in the sex industry sort of being the what's the fucking word in English? I'm sorry, I'm Finnish, so this is my second language. So.
I've been to Finland before, and I love it there.
Really?
I figured you were, yeah. All the women in Finland are so beautiful, and you look like one of them. They all look like hot vampires. That's what I said when I was there. I was like, everyone here looks like such a sexy vampire. It's crazy.
It's lack of sun, I bet. Like, we're all, pale ghosts. And trust me, there's a ghost of some guy under all this makeup. So,
yeah, right.
Honestly, I look nothing like this if I take all this off. Everything's white, eyebrows, like color of nothing, and so on. But anyway, thank you very much. That was a nice thing to say. But yeah, I was like thinking whether your career is sort of like your source of not just inspiration, but also the material that you put into the adventures.
Yeah. And like, look, I think there's a lot of information about stripping, about porn, about, a lot of things inside of sex work that's just so far off from what it's really like. So I wanted this to feel a lot closer. Granted, it is still fiction. There's things, I did in the book that like, they're fictionalized. It's like a cartoony version of things, but I wanted the real, I wanted to capture just elements of what it's really like to go through these experiences. I think a lot of people think of like sex work, like there's just so many extremes. And I think like you're either super empowered or you're super traumatized. A lot of people don't think of what it's like just to go through a regular day, and I tried to really capture that. Like, here's what happens when this is your job. Oops.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's really interesting what you said about the extremes, that it's hard to see the in the middle.
And that's kind
work,
of,
that you go to work, you do this as a job.
It's not work. And and how do you interact with your friends, and how do you have a social life, and how do you have a boyfriend, and how do you feel at the end of the day, and what do you do after work, and like, things like that. I try to really capture in there because those are all things I can, relate to. And I think just a lot of people don't understand like that we lead, normal lives and have the same problems as everyone else, outside of work. And strip clubs are particularly interesting because it's like half the room is in the sex industry and the other half isn't. There's not many places you find that. Like in porn, everyone on set is in porn, you don't have like outsiders interacting with people like that, and most people in the porn industry, after a while, like your whole life becomes in the porn industry. You have friends in the porn industry and you're going to like events and stuff like that. And even though you have a life outside of work, it's just like you have other people in your circle you can talk to when shit happens. But I feel like strippers, it's like most of them, they go to work and then they go home to a completely separate life. Nobody they're going home to is also in that industry, like for the most part, you know what I mean? So it's kind of this bizarre sector of the sex industry.
So they kind of have to turn off their day job.
Yeah. Which I think makes it really interesting, you know? Yeah, where you kind of like, you have to choose that you're sort of living a double life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I would think that this is also like a very good way to sort of bring the human side, like, you know, because it's so easy to dehumanize sex workers, like girls with
Yeah.
porn, you know, and like this is a quote from Mr. Bungle album, wasn't intended to be offensive or anything like that, but like, you know, that it's easy to see the girls on the screen as not really human, you know, that they
Yeah.
become
Yeah.
an object, like, you know, something to just direct thoughts and actions that society deems vulgar or somehow undesirable. So, you know, it comes then with stigma, and I'm sure I don't need to be telling you this, but like you writing a book like this that brings the everyday life closer, I would think could help like remove that stigma a little bit and like raise that, at least plant that seed into that person's head. Of course, then it comes the question of like, who's going to read it? Probably not the people who really would need to read it, you know,
Right.
to
Yeah, exactly.
effect, but
Well, you never know. Yeah, I guess we'll see who reads it. I mean, I think a lot of housewives read erotica.
Oh, yeah, probably.
And this is really cool because most stuff I do appeals mostly to men. I mean, I try to always keep my women in mind, and I probably have more female fans than a lot of other people do. Like I do, you know, I do know I have a lot of female subscribers to my website and stuff like that. But the majority is men, you know. I look at my Instagram, you know, fan base, and it's like 93% men. And I bet like the other 7% is like my friends in porn that are women. Like, it's, you know, it's kind of just how it is. So it's nice to have something that where I supposedly, you know, from what I talked to my publishing company, it is primarily women that read erotica. So it's cool to have something that's more for women than for men, I guess. But everybody, I'm open to everybody reading the book.
Everyone buy it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, like, you know, it's not like the stigma is somehow only limited to men, like dehumanizing people in sex work. Women are worse.
Oh, women do it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah,
I get it, you know?
much worse way, you know, like,
Yeah.
and you know, I always try to understand people and their motives and why they tick the way they tick, you know, and it helps, but it's still something that bothers me. And do you think that like, and this is completely different now, but do you think the Me Too movement has in any way affected the sex industry?
You know, I have seen a handful of people get you know, pushed out because of inappropriate behavior. I mean, I think it went to any industry. I mean, it affected even like people who work in normal corporate offices, you know? So I think it affected any kind of structure. But and you know, I think it helped kind of put more structure into how we address consent on set and stuff like that. So I mean, I think it affected us, but I think we, you know, there's like, I think porn was much more advanced in this way than Hollywood because we openly talk about sex all the time and it's already established. Like, you're supposed to have sex with this person at work and this other person is there to film it and they are not supposed to have sex with you. And like, you know what I mean? We already have these boundaries laid out that they don't have in Hollywood. And I don't know. I think there's a lot more like in Hollywood, like I would have no idea how to get a part in like a mainstream movie. You need to have like an agent. And even if you have an agent, that you have to know people, you have to go to like certain auditions. There's a lot of like things you need to do to get even in front of the right people in Hollywood. So that does leave more open to like, well, if you fuck me or if you blow me, I can get you here because this place where you need to be is hard to get to, you know, like, someone could come to me and be like, if you suck my dick, I'll get you in a movie. And if I really, really wanted to be in a movie, I'd be like, well, I better suck his dick because I have no idea how else to get it.
Right.
In porn, it's like, if you're a hot girl that wants to get into porn, there's no like red tape. You know what I mean? Like you can get in there, you know, you don't have to go through anything sketchy to get in. Like you can kind of just come in. So
there is a couch.
Yeah, I think some of the accessibility and just the openness and stuff like really like kind of made porn a way more respectable place than Hollywood, where there's just porn is just so open about everything. Everything's very transparent, you know? Yeah. I mean, even, you know, when I'm directing, like people talk directly to me, the director, like nobody in a Hollywood movie is like texting back and forth with the director the night before. Like that just leaves many layers of like things not being accessible. And that leaves more room for people to abuse their power. I think there's less hierarchy like that in porn. So there's just less, you know, abuse of power. But, you know, there unfortunately has been some, you know, directors and performers who have been inappropriate, and people voice their opinions about it. And I suppose if this was before the Me Too movement, maybe they would have just been quiet about it. So, you know, it happens. But I don't think it's nearly as bad as Hollywood, and I think it's easier to address things here.
Do you think there's a difference in this, like, you know, in the mainstream porn industry and the alternative porn, like, sector? Do you think that maybe, like,
you know, like it's kind of funny because the term alt porn existed for what I did like almost 20 years ago now, and everything's mixed into one.
Right.
So I don't really, you know, I guess I am in mainstream porn now, and that's where I've been for quite some time. So, you know, but I guess what you could compare it to is the more amateur stuff. But the more amateur stuff, yeah, I mean, it gets tricky because the more amateur stuff, it's friends doing stuff with each other. So you don't go through all the same paperwork and stuff that a corporate structure would go through. But being in mainstream porn and having to go through all the corporate things, the paperwork where you have to sign off on what you're okay with and what you're not okay with, even if it feels completely redundant, like even if you're working with someone who you've worked with a million times, you do it anyway. I don't ever skip over that stuff. And if I'm doing a smaller like content thing for my fan page, like I'll go through the same protocols, because I think it's just good to always do that no matter what, even if you're working with your best friend and it seems silly to go through a list of like do's and don'ts. I think it's just something everybody should, you know, get in the habit of doing when you're, you know, doing this as a professional.
Like in any sort of business transaction or cooperation situation, you should scope out the project, right? You know?
Yeah.
That's basically what
you're find doing. You or read the book, how can they go about getting hold of you? Or
just go. You can find my book on Amazon. That's probably the easiest way to get it. And it'll be
Club
delivered
42.
like the next day. It's called Club 42 by Joanna Angel. Just search that. You can follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Twitter. My name is Joanna Angel. Both my accounts are verified, so please follow the real one. Don't follow a fake Joanna Angel and listen to the lies they tell you.
Thank you so much. I hope that wasn't too bad. I told you we keep it short.
No, perfect. Thank you very, very much.
All right,
nice to meet you guys.
Be well. Stay safe.
Whenever you do it, just tag me in a tweet and I'll retweet it.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good day. Be safe.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.